All right, guys, welcome into an official season review, possibly a new series I'm doing, just reviewing each big-time college football team season. If you have a team you want me to review, put it in the comments, but I'm going to be starting with Ohio State, one of the most well-known college football teams in the country. And guys, what I'll do is we'll go game by game. I'll just give my quick take on kind of how each game went for the Buckeyes, and then I will be giving a final grade. It'll just be a letter grade on the season. I might also grade Ryan Day, Jim Knowles. We'll see what happens, but let's go in. Obviously, you guys can see the overall schedule, the 11-0 start. Kind of a weird, wonky schedule, Ohio State, having 8 home games, only 4 away games, starting off the season with 5 straight home games overall. And to be honest, it was a very easy schedule, obviously except for the Michigan game and the Penn State game. But overall, the Big Ten, Wisconsin really wasn't that good this year. Michigan State is just a dumpster fire right now. Iowa's just no offense. So there were really not a lot of tough games. I would say Maryland was probably the third hardest game in terms of the regular season in conference for the Buckeyes. So week 1, guys, we remember the huge top 5 matchup, and I would say overall for both Ohio State and Notre Dame, I mean, anytime you win a game that's a top 5 matchup, it's good. But this game in general was just kind of a letdown. Very little scoring. Ohio State, Emeka Egbuka scored a touchdown early. JSN gets injured. Pretty crazy all the way back at the kickoff of this game. Everyone was saying JSN was the best receiver in college football. He was going to have 1,800, maybe 2,000 yards, and he gets injured with his hamstring and basically never plays again. So, everyone was talking about Jim Knowles. Really good performance there by the defense. I think it was more Notre Dame breaking in a brand new quarterback. Marcus Freeman, first road game, very hostile environment. Notre Dame ended up being a pretty polarizing team, but this win, in the end, it was very solid for Ohio State. Notre Dame was quality. They lost to USC, but overall, I would say this turned out to be a quality win, even with Notre Dame losing to Marshall and also losing to Stanford, which really killed them. If Notre Dame would have beaten Stanford, there would have been a lot more excitement around this win. Moving to week 2, Arkansas State, really the only drama in games like this is, do they cover the spread? Ohio State actually did not cover this spread. I think there were like 42 or maybe like 38-point favorites. I don't remember exactly. Arkansas State did not have a good year. You can see Trevion Henderson, good game. Marvin Harrison Jr. has his first big breakout. C.J. Stroud starting really the Heisman stats there, the 4 touchdowns, the 350 yards, an easy win. Maybe a little lackluster offense in the first half, but overall, it's just such a mismatch overall. Next, you've got another total mismatch. Toledo was honestly probably the best team in the MAC when they had their starting quarterback healthy. They, I believe, won the MAC actually and finished 8-5, but they really had a bad second half of the year. Either way, C.J. Stroud, I believe when you look at the ESPN metrics, the performance by C.J. Stroud against Toledo in terms of passer efficiency, it was one of the best performances overall of the season. I mean, not that it's a crazy impressive because you're facing Toledo, but he did have 5 incompletions and 5 passing touchdowns. Dolan Hayden, the true freshman, plays well, and Ohio State ties the highest number of points scored in an FBS versus FBS game, 77. Nobody scored 80 this year. 77 was as high as anyone got, and that's what Ohio State got to. They were 31-point favorites in this game and very easily covered the spread. Next, you've got Ohio State improving to 4-0. They're ranked number 3 at this point. Wisconsin was just terrible, and this game was a 7:30 game on on ABC. I have no clue how it got that window. I believe Ohio State was up 24-0 with 13 minutes left in the second quarter. C.J. Stroud was just dissecting Wisconsin throughout the entire first half. It was a total mismatch. And honestly, Wisconsin's very lucky the final score was 52-21. They scored 2 total garbage time touchdowns in this game. I remember that. It could have been 69-7. This was not a competitive game at all. It was not close early at all. Next, Ohio State, another home game. Very easy win against just a horrible Rutgers team. Rutgers has a terrible offense. You know, I do remember Ohio State struggling early in this game, and it was kind of a weird game where Mayan Williams finishes with 5 touchdowns, 190 yards, but I remember the fans booing Ohio State early in this game because they were just struggling, but they end up winning 49-10. Again, Rutgers just has no offense. They have such little talent. They do fight, and they play decent defense with Greg Schiano, but they're just going to be simply outmanned on the road at Ohio Stadium. Moving to, I believe, week 6, I'm guessing. Yep. Ohio State ranked 3rd. And guys, you want to talk about an annihilation. I know it says 49-20, and that's not like a crazy blowout. This game, I mean, Michigan State, they've been one of the worst pass defenses for 2 years now, and CJ Stroud has just destroyed them in each of the last 2 years. I think Ohio State was up 49-0 on Michigan State last year at half. And then this year, they might have had like 35 points or something. Just crazy blowout. Ohio State outgained Michigan State by over 400 yards in this game. This is when C.J. Stroud really took control of the Heisman, the 6 passing touchdowns, the 360 yards. It was kind of like C.J. Stroud. There was also, Caleb Williams, Drake May a little bit. But at this point, it was really C.J. Stroud's Heisman to lose. Abuka, another good game. Trevion Henderson, decent. They win that one. Next, you've got Ohio State 54-10. Weird game here. Ohio State really struggled in the first half. They scored, I think they had 4 or 5 field goals because Iowa kept turning the ball over, but then Iowa's defense would hold Ohio State. Very frustrating. And then you see Julian Fleming, the 2 catches for 105 yards. He had like a 80-yard touchdown late in this game, and it really helped Stroud's numbers. I do remember that. But Ohio State's offense struggled mightily in the first half. And the final score, if you rewatch this game, it does not do it justice. This was not a 54-10 type game. Iowa's defense played really well. They just have such a historically bad offense. And one of the worst quarterback performances of the year, Spencer Petras, 6 of 14 for 49 yards and 2 interceptions. Although, guys, Sam Laporta is a really good tight end. Somebody's going to draft Sam Laporta in the 2nd round. That's how good he is. Next, you've got Ohio State surviving. It's every year with Penn State. They play Ohio State tough. At some point, they are going to beat Ohio State. I don't know when it's going to happen, but it will happen. They're up against Ohio State in the 4th quarter. The Buckeyes score like 28 points in the span of like 8 minutes or something. JTT has a generational defensive game where he has like a pick 6, a fumble recovery, a forced fumble, 2 sacks. Ridiculous. Marvin Harrison Jr., this is the game when people really started talking about Marvin Harrison Jr. being the best receiver in college football. And this was the game when we really started seeing cracks in that Jim Knowles defense. Sean Clifford, 370 through the air. He did throw 3 interceptions, which helped Ohio State. Parker Washington destroyed Ohio State's secondary. The Buckeyes survived a scare, 44-31, with a crazy 4th quarter barrage of points in that one. Oh, God. Not this game. This just terrible. A horrible. Everyone talks about the weather and stuff, but legitimately, you couldn't throw. You could not throw the ball. It was the perfect storm. Crazy. Ohio State wins this game 21-7. CJ Stroud, 26 pass attempts, 76 yards. Mayan Williams comes alive late. CJ Stroud actually ran well in this game for like 50 yards. There's just no offense. There's no offense. It was miserable. I would rather not watch this. Honestly, it was just so bad that you couldn't throw. It was demoralizing to watch this game. The ball, if you threw it 5 yards, it would go. It was just too windy. There was the perfect scenario of major wind coming off the lake in Chicago, or, for Northwestern. Just disgusting. Northwestern also knew how to play with it too. They would just run the ball, eat the clock, get to 3rd and 1, get the first down, run the ball, eat the clock. And I remember Ohio State not even being able to convert like 3rd and shorts against Northwestern. Oh, it's miserable. Just a miserable game. Next, we've got Ohio State. Pretty typical here, destroying Indiana. I believe they covered the spread in this game by maybe like 3 points. I think the final spread was Ohio State minus 39 or minus 40, and they barely covered. CJ Stroud kind of gets back on track in terms of his Heisman hopes. He goes for 305 touchdowns. Marvin Harrison Jr. continues. Indiana at this point did not have a quarterback that could throw on their roster. They're just, at this point, they're completely done. This was not a close game. This was kind of the snow game, if you will, for Ohio State. There were some light flurries in the first half of that one. Next, you've got the game before Michigan. Ohio State struggling in this one, especially on defense. They end up winning 43-30. This was the Dolan Hayden game, the true freshman, 146 and 3 touchdowns. CJ Stroud really just not great. And it's kind of weird because CJ Stroud started off this game throwing a touchdown to Trev. Oh, this was the game. Yeah, guys, you remember Trevion Henderson playing in this game? The dude had like a broken leg and he was playing. I have no clue what kind of a debacle that was by the Ohio State. He was limping and he was still getting carries. I think he had like 11 carries for 19 yards in this game. It just makes no sense. But they end up going to Dolan Hayden, and he got crazy volume. I mean, for only playing like one half, he got 27 carries. And Tonga Vailoa, this was a Maryland team where it seemed like everything broke right. They were energized. They had the crowd. They had an ABC 3:30 game. You know, everything broke right for them in this game to really be competitive, and they played well. And then Maryland did win a nice bowl game against NC State. So that's not really a bad team. You got to give credit to Maryland football. Good for them. And then, of course, you've got just the disaster. And guys, Michigan certainly deserved to win this game. But if this game is played 50 times, this was like the only time Michigan was going to win by 22. And that's not me hating on Michigan. I'm just telling you, if you watch the way Michigan played against TCU and you watch the way Ohio State played against Georgia, this game was a total aberration. And certainly Michigan deserved to win it. I'm not saying they didn't, but this is college football. These are young players. It's fair to admit that this game and the idea that Michigan blew out Ohio State, because they did, it was a one-time aberration. But certainly Ryan Day now is 1-2 against Michigan, and he's in a spot. Unfortunately, that's very bad because he might fall to 1-3 if he loses next year. Donovan Edwards just ridiculously bloated numbers because he had two 95-yard touchdowns. It wasn't that far, but CJ Stroud, he did have 350 passing yards. The Ohio State running game really wasn't that bad. It was just, you want to know something, guys? This game was screwed the second G. Scott, and I don't want to kill the kid, the second he got that penalty and Ohio State got a hold, they had, 1st and 35, and then Ryan Day ran the ball on 1st and 35. How do you run the ball on 1st and 35, down 24-20 in the third quarter? I don't want to kill Ryan Day because he definitely coached well against Georgia, but come on. This was the Jim Knowles thing. Jim Knowles, I don't know what Cam Martinez is doing playing at this point. Cornelius Johnson has 2 ridiculously long touchdowns. Michigan just crushes Ohio State. And at this point, it's looking like Ohio State is playing in another meaningless Rose Bowl or maybe the Orange Bowl against Clemson, but then they get saved by Utah beating USC, and we go on to the Peach Bowl. And Ohio State up the entire game, up 35-24, and Marvin Harrison Jr. gets a concussion. They end up losing. The defense, again, struggling. CJ Stroud plays amazing. He also runs. It's so weird. People were saying that CJ Stroud can run, and I was like, no, sometimes some quarterbacks just can't run. They're just pure pocket passers. But no, people were right. CJ Stroud, if he wants to, he has long strides. He is a fast dude for being a big quarterback. And finally, this game, he runs, he gets Ohio State near field goal range. I said they needed 10 more yards, and they didn't get the 10 more yards, and we know Noah Ruggles struggles with the leg. He does not have the leg. It's very hard for him to make a 50-yarder. It's for any college kicker, unless it's Michigan's kicker. Michigan's kicker is ridiculous, but pretty much every kicker asking a 50-yarder is tough. Obviously, you could say a number of things about this game for Ohio State. They should have won it. I mean, anytime you're up by 14 points in the fourth quarter, you got to win. You just have to win. And, you know, how about the 80-yard touchdown? Oh, my God. What was it, a 75-yard touchdown where the safety slips? You just can't allow that. It just cannot happen when Georgia is down by so many points. But either way, guys, I mean, listen, it's Ohio State. Ryan Day was really fired up. It's like we saw a different Ryan Day in this game. Whether or not that's going to continue, I'm skeptical. But, you know, Ryan Day certainly will lead this team next year. And it's going to be very scary because if he loses, it's going to be very ugly. So Ohio State will, or if he loses to Michigan, it's going to be very ugly because he'll be 1-3. So Ohio State probably will finish number 4 in the final poll, I would guess, because I'm guessing Michigan finishes 3. Georgia, TCU finish 1-2. Overall grades for Ohio State's season, I'm going to give them a C-. So where they lose points for me, losing to Michigan at home, not making the Big Ten championship, not winning the Big Ten championship. Where they gain points, they did make the playoffs, and they did play well and show well against Georgia, but there are no moral victories. So overall, you can't give them an F, you can't give them a D. That would be like a 3 or 4 loss season. It wasn't that bad. Their biggest win, I guess, was Penn State on the road. That's not that crazy of a win to me, especially for a program like Ohio State. So I'll go ahead and give, it's between like a C and a C-. When Michigan comes in and beats you by 22, I just can't give you a B. I'm sorry. So my overall grade for Ohio State is a C-. And, Jim Knowles, I don't know. It was really bad. Jim Knowles, the scheme, you've got to give him more time, but that was not a good first year. We'll see if they can maybe get some players from the transfer portal to really help them out in terms of the secondary. And then just a few final analytical points. In basically any analytical model you look at, Ohio State is either second or third. In this one, they are second. Georgia is one in basically everything. There are some models like ESPN, FPI, things like that have Alabama 2, Ohio State 3, or it's either Ohio State 2, Alabama 3, and then normally it is Michigan 4 and actually Tennessee 5. That is kind of the overall analytics if you're into that. And then I thought this was another thing. You look at the success rate, Ohio State doing a good job, but how about the explosive plays? This was a major problem. Ohio State just giving up too many explosive plays, and I don't understand the strategy where Jim Knowles says it's okay if we give up 5 explosive plays a game. No, it's not. That is far too many per game. The one thing, in my opinion, in college football, defenses should try and limit is the explosive play. Make a team drive 10, 12 plays, make them get multiple third down conversions. More than likely, they're going to mess up. They're going to drop a pass. These are 17-year-old kids. Just Ohio State giving up too many explosive plays, especially through the air, and also not being able to generate many explosive plays on the ground. That is mainly due to Trevion Henderson being injured throughout much of the season. Obviously, Mayan Williams is a bigger back. He's not going to get those 70 or 80-yard, long runs or even 50-yard runs. So either way, guys, I think the season overall and C.J. Stroud's legacy, it's just sad. It's just sad. I mean, 0-2 against Michigan. The first loss to Michigan, just bad defense. The second loss, just a weird situation with the explosive plays. I don't know. I don't even know how to explain, especially the second game. And then the Georgia game. It's just sad. There's just nothing else I can really say about the season other than, 11-2. They won the games they were supposed to win, except, they were, 9 points, 8-point favorites against Michigan? I don't remember. They're always favorites against Michigan. It's whatever. Ohio State, I think They were at least 9-point favorites in every game this year outside of the Georgia game, and they were 6.5-point underdogs in that one. So that's basically the Ohio State season. It's a sad story. It's unfortunate. Marvin Harrison Jr. doesn't get that concussion. We all know Ohio State wins that game. That's not even a question, but nobody cares. I mean, look at the Clemson game in 2019. Ohio State should have won that game, but no one cares now. 3 years later, nobody cares. 3 years from now, no one's going to care. All anyone's going to care about is Georgia winning back-to-back national titles. No one's going to care that Ohio State outplayed Georgia and should have won. Nobody cares. So, I don't know, guys. It's just sad. It's really the Ryan Day era can be summed up in 2 games. That 2019 Clemson game, actually probably 3, because now he's lost to Michigan twice. And, the whole pandemic thing, and if that Michigan game happens in 2020, is Harbaugh even the coach? I don't know. There's a lot of ifs, ands, or buts, and what ifs and stuff like that. But, as the dust settles, Ryan Day is 1-2 against Michigan. Ryan Day does not have a national championship. Ryan Day has one championship appearance where he got crushed by Alabama, but we all know that was a total sham game in front of like 30 people. I mean, that was a joke, but I don't know, guys. Either way, I give Ohio State the grade a C-. I think that's pretty fair. You don't want to be too hard on them. Yes, they did back into the playoffs, but I mean, let's be real. They were 11-1. They certainly deserve to make the playoffs, in my opinion, even if, they did back into them. But guys, that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description.